Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're continuing with Daf Zayin Amud Aleph 57a1. We just spoke about that we said Hashta Barit Meimat right Atun. If right now we are going to be exiled from our land and therefore we're going to be 100% Tmeim and it's still going to be written Tumata B'Shulea. Amarle, so he comes and he says Tachazim Aktive. What is it written? Ashochenit Tof Tumatam. What does that mean? Afilu Bizman Shen Tmeim Shechina Shura Benem. Which means even if we're 100% Tmeim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu still puts a Shekhinah onto us. Even though we're 100% Tamim, not only if we're Safek Tamim, even if we're 100% Tamim and therefore he exiled us, still he's going to give us, he's going to put the Shekhinah on us. So says the Gemara, if something was already taught with a Hekesh, can you teach it again with a Hekesh? Which means, remember, a Hekesh is not Gzera Shava, it's not a Binyanav, it's not a Kavachomen. Hekesh means the fact that it's taught with proximity, closeness, right? Well, we said juxtaposition. You have two things close to each other, and I learn one halakha to another halakha. So now that I learned one halakha to that, I can make a photocopy and learn another one. What does that mean? Here it explains that in Masechet Yoma we learned by Dinei Kodshim that en davar nilmad be'hekesh chozer umlamed lemakom acher be'hekesh, which means once you learned one thing with a hekesh, you cannot learn something else from it with the same hekesh. So we have a question then. We just said that the hazaot of the Echal, we learned it from a Hekesh, from the hazaot of the Kodesh HaKodashim, okay? Which means that even the numbers of the, you do it in the Kodesh HaKodashim, we also learned it from a Hekesh, from Damapar, Damasaid. So if you learned a Hekesh, Damapar to Damasaid, how many numbers, right? You remember that we learned, right? Ve'izau Tah was only written by the Said. So therefore by the He-Goat, it was written one, so Acha Lemala. Then by the Par, it was written Sheva Pamim. So that's how we know Lemata was Sheva Pamim. So we learned the Sa'ir to the Par, right? That the Sa'ir has to do Sheva Pamim Lemata from the Par that has to do Sheva Lemata. And we learned the Par from the Sa'ir, that the Par, just like the Sa'ir is going to be a Chalamala, so to the Par is going to be a Chalamala. So we made a juxtaposition by Dama Par and Dama Sa'ir to learn the numbers from each other. But this is all in the Kodesh HaKodashim. So now can you come and use that same formula and now learn another Hekesh from the Parochet on the outside, which is in the Echal? Meaning if you already learned the Hekesh on the inside, which is in the Kodesh HaKodashim, and you learn from the Damasayid to Damapar and Damapar to Damasayid, but now you can't learn it on something on the outside. So says the Gemara, Hai hemenu v'davar acherhu velo have Hekesh. He says, no, this we learn from the original Hekesh. Right, that you do echat lemala v'sheva lemata. That's what we learn from the original hekesh. But he says miksat dino limad, from that which is written in meferush, and miksat dino you're going to learn from the hekesh, which means between the Damapar and Damasaid, it was already written in furash that you're going to do echat lemala v'sheva lemata. Now we're going to do a little bit above and a little bit below. We know that for sure, but just the minyan, the counts, meaning how many numbers, that we learn from the hekesh. But it's written in furash that we're going to be doing these different hazaot, okay? And therefore he says, so therefore it's not considered a hekesh. So therefore the same thing by kodshim, when you're learning it from a hekesh, it's not that you're meaning like this. For sure you have to sprinkle. That's according to everybody. Now the only question is, how much do you have to sprinkle? So since it's only a question of how much do you have to sprinkle, so because of that, that's why we're going to say that that's not learned from the hekesh. We only learn the hekesh, the numbers, but not the actual concept you have to do the sprinkling. So if I have to learn now that you have to do the sprinkling on the outside, and then you're good, you're comparing it to the inside, so there's no problem. You're allowed to do that. So hani chalamandama, but this is only good according to the mandama that says lo avi hekesh, that it's not considered a hekesh, right? Why? Because you already learned it mifurash from the pasuk, and you only learned from the hekesh the numbers. But according to the mandama, that this is considered a hekesh, and therefore again goes back to the original question: how do you learn from one hekesh to another hekesh? Ma'ikal meimar, what are you going to say? So answers the Gemara. We only learned the places, right? That means where you're going to do the hazal, but not the numbers. The numbers, we don't actually learn it from there, right? But we're only learning from the place. That's the first answer, okay? And therefore, since it's only the place and not the numbers, so that you could make a hekesh, and we don't say the general rule that something that you learn from a hekesh, you can't learn from another hekesh. Ibai tema, or another answer, right? Chutz mibifnim bechad azimna gamar. The outside from the inside, we learned it automatically in one halakha. Because since it says, V'chen yaseh le'ol moed, that you also have to do the same thing to the ol moed. So therefore, the exact same that you do on the outside, you do to the inside, and you learn it in once. It's not like separate. It's not that you have to learn from the outside to the inside. First of all, you have to do hazal. and then I have to learn outside from inside how many times. No. The second I say that the inside is done like, that the outside is done like the inside, I do a copy paste. I don't have to copy paste 2 different times. It's an original copy paste once. Since I have to do it once, I don't say that now it becomes that I'm learning it with a cache. No. It's mamash, a copy and paste. That's all you have to do. Okay? Until here we're clear? Yeah? So Tana, we learned to the Braita, Keshehu Mazeh, when he's going to come and he's going to sprinkle, right, of the blood on the Echal from the Dama Said, Eno Mazela Parochet Kenegen the Parochet. He's not actually going to sprinkle on the Parochet. He's doing it opposite the Parochet, which means that it's not actually on the Parochet itself. Think about it. Imagine right now if they would have to start sprinkling the blood on the Aron. You understand? You know what it is to clean that? And nobody could go inside. It's a Kodesh Kodeshim, you understand? Or imagine you're going to do it on the Parochet. You know how dirty that Parochet is going to be? Imagine every single time you go to the tapestry, the curtains, and throw blood on it. It's not, so you're right. It's not mamash on the Parochet. It's not mamash on the Aron. It's keneged. It's opposite it, which means right beside it. But it's going to be on the floor. It's not going to be on the...
was very expensive.
Sure. You know how many people it was just to sew together that Parochet? Imagine. You understand? It was...
good quality.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I don't remember how many women it was. We learned that 100. I don't remember. It was crazy numbers. It sounded like people.
Huge. It was also very high.
Yeah, for sure. The entire thing. It's yeah. So he says like this. Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosef says Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosef. Ani ri'itia beRomi. I saw the parochet in Rome. Vayu aleh kamiti b'dam shebazeh. It did have some drops, which means that it's mashma that he did do a mamash on the parochet, not only keneged. It's mashma that it was on. So says the Gemara, no. The dilma de parel and davar shel tzibur, maybe it was parel and davar shel tzibur or sirei avodah zarah, which the blood of the korbanot also they're going to do on the parochet. So how do you know that it was from the Yom Kippurim? Maybe it was other korbanot. So answers the Gemara, no. The Chazad David kesidran, that he saw that it was on the achat lemala v'sheva lemata. That was only by Kippur. That wasn't done by the parel and davar shel tzibur or the sirei avodah zarah. It wasn't like that. That means this order of achat lemala v'sheva lemata was only by Kippur. It wasn't by the other ones, which they had to sprinkle on the parochet. Utnan, and also another raya, we learned in the Mishnah, it wouldn't actually touch the parochet at all. But if it did touch, it touched. It doesn't become pasul. I saw it in Rome, and it did have a few. So you see from here that it's mashma on the parochet itself. He actually used to do it on the parochet, not only just connect that. So ask the Gemara, maybe it was a part of Yom Kippurim. Says no, the Chazinu David Shlo Kesidram, but he saw that it was not like Islam. So basically, there was 2 sides of the story. Whether he actually saw the blood on the parochet, which was done, which means that it's from Kippur, or was Shelo Kesidranu, meaning it wasn't from Kippur. It was Parelem Davar Shel Tzibur and Sirei Avodah Zarah. Fine. Next, 2 dots. It says over here, or not 2 dots, but it's a new point. It says Nitarvulo Damim B'Damim. What happens right now if the Kohen Gadol, he got confused between the Dama Par and Dama Said before sprinkling it in the Kodesh Kodashim? What does he do? So Amar Rava says, right? So what he's going to do is he's going to sprinkle from this ta'arovet, right? He's going to sprinkle and it's going to be zechuvah for both of them. Whether it was Dama Par or Dama Said, it was going to act for both of them. So it says now the Gemara as follows, okay? So he says, what happens if they got mixed together? So Rava says, no, then you just do 1 lemala v'sheva lemata, and it's going to count for both of them, for also the Dama Pan and also the Dama Said, because since they're both being sprinkled, so I'm doing 2 for 1, but it's okay. They said in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah, and he said, look at these Babylonian tipshim. Since they're living in a land which is so dark, they come and they start saying things which are very dark. 1 second, he's putting lemala, the sa'id, before putting the lamata of the par. Because remember, what did we just say? We said it got mixed up. What do? Acha lemala, shev lamata. Now, when you do the acha lemala, you're being tzechuvah both. Also the dama par, also the dama sa'id. But 1 second, how do you put the lamala of the sa'id before the lamata of the par? It has to be lamala of the par, lamata of the par, then lemala of the sa'ir, lemata of the sa'ir. But you can't do the lemala of the sa'ir before the lemata of the par. Right? Hakayayiv lemala the sa'ir mikamei mata the par. The Torah says, V'chila mikaperet hakodesh, kale dama par. First finish with the dama par, and then afterwards you do dama sa'ir. So how are you going to be tzedek chuvah? Everyone understood the question? A very simple question. How could it be that if you're saying 2 for 1, what's 2 for 1? It got mixed up, the dama par, dama sa'ir. Says the Gemara, don't worry about it. What do? Sprinkle a chal lemala, sheva lemata, you tzedek chuvah, both. Says the Gemara, well, how does that work? If you're going to be tzedek chuvah both, when I sprinkled above the chal lemala, what was I tzedek chuvah? The dama par and dama sa'ir lemala. Then I sprinkle lemata. What am I being tzedek chuvah? Dama par and dama sa'ir of the lemata. The Torah says I first have to finish with the dama par, and then I start with dama sa'ir. So how do I do the sprinkling lemala of dama sa'ir before the sprinkling lemata of the dama par? That's the Gemara's asking. So El Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, but rather Rabbi Yirmiyah says noten achal lemala v'sheva lemata l'shem par. No, you're not doing a 2 for 1. You have to do it twice. But you do echal lemala v'sheva lemata for the par, and you do echal lemala v'sheva lemata for the sa'ir. Okay, another question. Nitarvu lo damim b'damim. What happens if they got mixed up in matanot ha'achronot? That means after you already did the achal lemala v'sheva lemata. After you did the achal lemala from the damapar, but you didn't do the sheva lemata. Now they got mixed up. That's called matanot ha'achronot. So the question is, what happens if they got mixed up now? So now Rav Papa thought to say in the name of Rava, so to say, he was in front of Rava. Thought to say, noten sheva lemata l'shem par l'shem sa'id. Now you could do sheva lemata for both. V'chozer v'noten, and then again you're going to do a chal lemala v'shem sa'id. So you're going to finish off one completely, and then you're going to do a chal lemala. Meaning, both of them together you could do for the lemata, but then you still have to do one more lemala. Okay? So says the Gemara. Yeah, he says the Gemara. Amarle ad hasha karonan tipshai. Until now, I call them fools. Hashta now tipshai de tipshai. Now they're fools of fools, right? The kamagmenina lehu velo gemire, because they're going to say that we're going to teach them and we're not learning, right? Whether we're teaching them, you're putting the lamata before the lamala. That according to everybody you can't do. You can't put the matanot lemata, the sheva lemata, before the achal lemala, and it doesn't matter which one it is, right? Why? Lemata the sirika the Torah says 10 lemala v'achakach lemata. First you put the lemala, then afterwards the lemata. Okay? Nun zaydem ubet 57b. Ela Amar Rava, but rather Rava says noten sheva lemata l'shem par v'chozev noten achal lemala v'sheva lemata l'shem sa'id. You're right. You're going to put sheva lemata 7 below for the par, and then again you're going to put achal lemala v'sheva lemata l'shem sa'id. You're going to put achal lemala and sheva lemata 1 above and 7 below for the sa'id. You have to do it. You're right. You have to do it like that. Mamash, you have to do it separate. Okay? So you're going to do first sheva lemata, and then you're going to do again achal lemala v'sheva lemata for the sa'id. Next, nitarvu lo kosot b'kosot. What happens if you got mixed up between the two kosot? Which means you don't know which one is damapar, dama sa'id. Before they got mixed up together, the damapar with dama sa'id, but it was just too early, right? They were trigger happy. But here, I don't know which one's which. They're both separate, but I don't know which one's which. So it says the Gemara, noten v'chozer v'noten v'chozer v'noten shlosha pamim. You have to do 3 times. So you have to do achal lemala v'sheva lemata, right? Mazeh achal lemala v'sheva lemata from 1 cup, achal lemata v'sheva lemata from the 2nd cup, and then again achal lemala v'sheva lemata from the 1st cup. So it comes out that it's going to be 3 times, and then he's going to be tzedek chuvah from all the sfikot. Why? Because if the dama par was in the 1st cup, so then it was the first sazaut was perfect, and then the second one was dama sa'id, which was perfect, no problem. But even if the dama sa'id was the 1st cup, and then you did the dama sa'id before the dama par, which you're not supposed to do, so that's why you have to do it again a 3rd time, right? So that way, no matter what, you were tzedek chuvah all the opinions. Okay, 4th question. Miktzat damim nitarvulo umiktzat damim no nitarvulo. What happens if only part of the blood got mixed up, right, in a 3rd vessel, and part of the blood did not get mixed up? So says Gemara, Pshita, it's obvious. Ki ayiv mivadayin yayiv. For sure, when the Kohen Gadol is going to come and sprinkle, he has to sprinkle it from something which is vadai. Miu, however, though, hanach shiraim v'lesod azle. Does the shiraim go to the yesod? Or dilma dechuyin hayu avu v'azle ama, or maybe it goes to the ama. Which means that this, we know that first of all, there's the yesod. First of all, since not everything got mixed up, for sure, when he's going to do the sprinkling, he's doing it from the vadai. But now the question is, all the leftover blood. The leftover blood went to the Yesod. The Yesod was, if you remember, you go to the Yesod of the Mizbeach, the bottom part of the Mizbeach, right? It only had on the west and on the north, so northwest, you had the Amah Lama, which is called the Yesod. Now, by the Yesod, there were two holes. In one of those holes, they used to pour down all the blood. Now, there was another place where if it was disqualified over there, they would just put in Amah. Underneath the Bet HaMikdash was an Amah. They used to come and they used to clean out. It was like a irrigation underneath the Bet HaMikdash, and they used to clean out all the water and all the, the blood. Everything used to go out through there. So the question is, if it was still kosher, you could put in the Yesod. If it's not kosher and it's pushed off, then you have to throw it into the Amah. So that's the question. So it says the Gemara, Rav Papa says, even according to the Mandamar, kos echad oseh chavero shirayim, that one cup is going to make its friend the second cup into shirayim. Hanemilim, one of these words, that if you wanted to give it, you could give it. But here, you can't put it from this cup, because this third cup is a safek. Meaning the first two cups are vadai. So if you could give it from either one, that's fine. But once it becomes a third cup, and that third cup is a safek, now it's pushed off. So maybe no. Amar le Ravuna ben Rishon Papa says Ravuna Rishon to Papa. But the opposite. Even according to the Mandamar Kosechad Osechavero, that one cup is going to make its friend Dachui Hanemile Dedachia Biadaim. That's only if it's going to be that you're going to push it from its hands. But if it's going to be that you're not going to push it from its hands, no. Okay, the Tanya, as we learned in the Braita, Lemala hu omer, above it says vet damo yishpoch, right? Vet damo yishpoch yisod mizbach haolah. Ulmata omer, and above below it says vet kol dama yishpoch yisod mizbach. So minayin lechatat shekibel dama barba kosot. How do we know that if you're going to have a chatat that you will receive the blood of 4 kosot, and atam mikol zeh alachat bezeh achat, that you're going to put one on this cup, one on the other cup, shekulan nishpachim yisod, that everything is going to be poured into the yisod. Talmud Lomar comes to teach you vet kol dama yishpoch, that all the blood you're going to pour it. So Yachol, I would have thought to say, even if you're going to put 4 matanot on one of them, Talmud Lomar comes to teach you, vet damo yishpoch, that you're going to pour the blood. He's going to pour it into the yesod, and they're going to be poured into the amah. The Bilazar Shimon says, how do we know that if you had a chatat, that the Kohen accepted all the blood in 4 different kosot, and then he put it onto the 4 karnot mizbeach from one of those kosot? How do we know that all of them are going to be poured to the yesod? Kol dama includes from, meaning like this. Usually, where do you receive the blood? In 1 cup. Here, the guy came and he accepted it in 4 cups. Now, remember, when they're sprinkling, they have to sprinkle from all the blood. Here, you only sprinkle from 1 cup. But how do we know that still all the blood goes to the yesod? So he says that kol dama yishpoch. It doesn't say kol damo. So Ravashi says lemiuta shiraim shebetzav bema. No, that's a shiraim. That's leftovers from the neck of the animal. That's what it's coming to teach you. Okay, fine. It says a Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah says ira damapar leltoch damasayir. The damapar was sprinkled into the damasayir. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, according to the Mandamar, sheme'arvin lakranot, right, that we're going to put an eruv, we're going to come and we're going to mix the blood of the pan and blood of sayir for the karnot of the mizbeach. Right? Remember that on the inner mizbeach, you had to do 4 matanot, 4 sprinklings. On the outer one, it was always usually shte matanot she'en arba. It was on the 2 corners, which became 4, because you did it on 2 corners, and therefore it became on the 2 different sides. Okay? The Itmar was stated. One of them says that you do mix it, one of them says you don't. We want to bring a proof that Rabbi Yoshia is the one that says Maravim. The Amar he says, even though it's not written Yachdav, it's like it's written Yachdav. Okay? So even if you're going to say it's Rabbi Yonatan, it's different over here. Dichtiv is it's written Achat. What is achat? Achat means from one a year. So Tanya, we learned in the Braita, right? Not like the answers. Right? What does it mean? You're going to take from the blood of par and blood of sayid. That it's going to be mixed. These are the words of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonatan says, each one has to be done separately. And we continue tomorrow with Hashem.